Hello, everyone. My name is Andy Chen. I'm a business intelligence consultant at Billigence in Sydney. I want to thank everyone for being here today and taking some time to join our webinar. I'm a Taiwanese-born South African, recently immigrated to Australia, and I love everything this country has to offer. I have 6 years of experience in data analytics and creating visualizations, specializing in data preparation and Tableau. I have a passion for data analytics and problem solving, and I love everything Tableau can offer to its users. Many people see Tableau just as a visualization tool that you can simply print into PDF and distribute it, and that's it. But today, I'm going to show you how to control and analyze your data smartly using Tableau. So let's get started. Let me share my screen with you guys. Who are we? We are a global consulting company focusing on data visualization, data governance, predictive analytics, and data science. We have clients across the world in Prague, Frankfurt, US, Singapore, London, and Australia. So what do we do? As mentioned previously, we focus on data consolidation and profiling, data governance, predictive modeling, and data visualization. We also do work in CRM for many of our clients to help them with their business processes. So just letting you guys see who we work with. We have clients across many industries, such as telco, finance, retail, government, and energy, and some other industries as well. So let's get started. Welcome to our Taking Control of Your Data Using Tableau webinar. Today, we will be talking about how to use parameters in Tableau, allowing business users to control how they want to visualize the data in Tableau and set up threshold for their data. To demonstrate this, I chose an example situation that many financial firms will find themselves in next year. As some of you might know, there's a new regulation that financial firms need to adhere to by end of 2021. It's called RG 271. This regulation stipulates how financial firms should resolve its customer disputes, which I'll go into that later. I will also be taking everyone through what parameters are and explaining how they work. I will show you guys 3 different examples of how parameters can change the way we visualize our data in Tableau. I will build these parameters with you guys in Tableau so you guys can see how it's been done. I will showcase the final product of the complaint dashboard in Tableau with cool parameters that gives business users control over their visualization and making sure that we comply with the regulation. We will then finish off the webinar with some Q&A session where I will be answering any questions you might have regarding our topic today. So let's take a look at the example dataset that I prepared for today. The dataset we're looking at today is the dataset that I downloaded from Gaggle. It has the US consumer complaints on financial products of a certain financial firm. The date is from 2011 to 2017. From this dataset, we can see that we have the date received of the complaint, what issue the customer is complaining about, what company does the issue belong to and which state it belongs to, where did the company receive the complaint is via referral, web, phone, etc. And this date is the date that the company replied and resolved the dispute. This is the outcome that the company gave to the customer. So for example, close with explanation. The timely response is a yes or no Boolean value where it speaks to did the financial firm reply to the customer in time. So acknowledge the customer in time. And from the feedback that we gave the customer, that they disputed. Right. So we can see that this is quite a complete complaint data set that we can definitely use and explore. So as previously mentioned, the regulation RG271 regulates how financial firms should manage the consumer complaints. I briefly studied the regulation, and I'll be showing everyone how this dataset can comply to the regulation. So let's take some time and understand exactly what the regulation is about. So the regulation is called RG271. This is a regulation that was published on the 30th of July 2020. It explains how internal dispute resolutions, IDR, should be managed in financial firms. I am only going to go through this regulation very briefly. Used in this dataset. The regulation basically dictates that all financial firms need to comply to this by end of October 2021. It entails what the maximum time frame financial firms have for dispute resolutions. Financial firms need to acknowledge the complaint in 24 hours, as previously. Written IDR response, so giving customer a feedback of what the outcome of the complaint is. Provide an IDR response in no later than 30 calendar days. That's for normal issues. For superannuation related, it's 45 days, and for credit related, then it's 21 days. If you would like to understand more about the regulation, you guys can download it from this website below. It's quite a long regulation. It's like I think it's around 60 pages. You can read through. You can read through it if you want. So now that we understand the regulation, and we have had a look at the dataset that we have, let's come up with some questions and controls of how we can comply to this regulation. So we can already think of questions like, how many complaints are we getting? Do we acknowledge these complaints in time? Where are we receiving these complaints? Is it from a channel that we can manage and we are able to respond in time? And if we have enough resources to actually respond to these disputes. What issues do customers complain about? And how long do we take to resolve these complaints? From these questions above, you can already see a few calculated measures that we can use as our KPI within our Tableau model. KPIs such as what is the average time to resolve these complaints? What is the total number of complaints being received by state, by company, etc.? And what is the customer dispute rates? As we don't want them to be too high, or else the financial firm need to have a look at how they are resolving these complaints. It's important to identify these KPIs as it allows us as developers to create a more focused reporting model. Before we carry on, let's take some time and understand what parameters are and how they can help us. So this is the explanation from the Tableau website. A parameter is a global placeholder value, such as a number, date, or string, that can replace a constant value in a calculation, filter, or reference line. This might sound confusing to some people that's not familiar with the technology, but allow me to explain that further. You can imagine it as a placeholder for a value. For example, you may want to create a calculated measure that checks if the sales for the month is over a certain budget value. For example, 5,000 Australian dollars. You can replace that 5,000 Australian dollar with a parameter that will allow users to change that value to the value that they want, and the calculation would still work. By using parameter control, you can turn your dashboard into a smart dashboard. This is what it looks like when you create a parameter. Parameter can be created as a text, number, a true or false value, or date and time. So if we have a look at the chart on the right hand side, you can see that you can also load the parameter from a certain value in your data set. That will save a lot of time if that's what you require to do. But today we won't be showing that example. However, this feature actually came in only in February this year, and it's quite handy for a lot of businesses. Okay, so this is the 3 different ways that we can use parameters to help us visualize our data a little bit better in Tableau. The first way is highlighting your data or creating reference lines. Second is using it as a filter to limit the amount of data being shown. The third one is creating dynamic views that allows user interaction. So let's jump into Tableau and I'll show you guys how to create all these parameters in these different ways. Okay, let me go into Tableau. Okay, blank sheets. So today this is the data set that we uploaded, right? Just to show you guys. It has the date received, the classification, sub-classification, issues, the company and state, everything in this data set. You can see here, this is a full data set of what we have. So once it's been loaded into Tableau, we can start doing our analysis. Let's, for example, we want to see the first example as we want to highlight our data. Yes, I want to highlight our data. So let's put in complaint ID. Let's want to see about states, for example. Let's just sort this a little bit. Let's change this to account because we need to count our complaints. And we can see that California has the highest complaint out of here, right? So we can see that all these five bars here is relevantly higher than the rest of the states. We want to highlight them, right? So we can do that. We can do that by creating a parameter. Let's say call this a param example 1. We want to see if it goes over a certain value. So we want to create it as an integer. Let's check if it goes over 40,000, right? Just to show you guys before we carry on, this is where you can choose how to create your parameters in other ways. You can add from a certain field within your dataset. or you can choose a range. This will create a parameter as a slider where you're giving it a minimum number, maximum number, and the step size. When you're sliding the parameter, the step size is what it increments by. I'll show you guys other examples after this. So let's create this as 40,000. Cool. And let's show this parameter control. Drag it over here. So we see this set as 40,000, but without a calculated measure, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything at all at the moment. So right, we need to create a calculated measure to work with this parameter. So let's create a calculated field. Let's call it state over threshold. Right, then we do our check. If our count of complaint ID is over param example 1, then true. Yeah. This will create a Boolean value of true and false. Let's just give it else. The calculation is valid, so we can carry on. We have created a calculated measure. We want to change the color to see if we want to change the color of the chart. So let's drag it into color. We can see that all 5 of these bars are being highlighted in orange. This means that it goes over our threshold. We can change this as we go. We can change to 10,000. See, all of these are highlighted in orange. We can change it to 40,000. We can even add a reference line so we can clearly see where our parameter, where our value is that we set. So you can create this, you can choose param example 1. You can see this, create a reference line. Anything above this, we want to highlight it in orange. So that is the first way, right? Highlighting your data or creating reference lines. Now, let's move on to the second one. To use it as a filter to limit the amount of data being shown. Okay, so, before we carry on, just want to show you guys, it can parameter can be created as a string. You can type a random string in there. It can be a Boolean value of a yes or no. It can be a datetime where you want to set your parameter at a certain date. And you can create, you can use a reference line to show what happens after that date, for example. And you can create it as a number as well. So let's clean out this page. We don't need these anymore. Let's clear it out. We want to show how to limit, right? So then let's use the same complaint ID count. And then let's choose issues. This is all the issues that customer complain about. Let's switch it around so it's easier to see, right? All the issues customer complain about. We can see that customer complain about this issue the most. However, we don't really want to include all of this within our reporting if we do want to print it out, right? So we can create a parameter to say, let's call it top number. Then let's create this integer. We want to see the top 5 of our issues. We want to see top 5 of our issues. We don't need this anymore, so let's hide it. Hide card. We want to see top number, show parameter control. Now we need, this works a little bit differently. We don't need to create a calculated measure this time. However, we do need to create a filter that will filter our data to show our top 5. So let's drag issues into our filters. Normally, you can just go to top and say just give me top 5. However, this is a static value, right? And every time you want to change this, you will have to ask the developer to come and change this value into like top 10 or etc., which is not ideal. We want to interact with the visualization. We don't want other developers to come and change something so simple for us every single time. That's why we use parameters. So what we can do is we can right click on the filter and say create set. We can choose, we want to filter by top number using our parameter, and we say okay, right? And let's drag the set in. Let's just name the set to be top number issues. So then here we currently have top number as 5, change to 10. It shows us the top 10. Different business unit might have different needs or different reporting. For example, if you're doing a monthly report, weekly report, you might want to see different top issues in your reporting. This allows the users to change this anytime they want. Right, that brings us to our second point, using a filter to limit the amount of data shown. Now let's move on to the third one, which is my favorite. Creating dynamic views that allows user interaction. What if we have multiple issues? Let's just leave this out. Let's leave this here. What if we have multiple, we want to see this bar chart, but we want it to be filtered by something else. For example, company, and we wanted to see the average number of days it takes for them to resolve the complaints. But we don't want to create a million charts. So what we can do is we can use parameters. Now, for time saving, I've already created these parameters. The idea is we want to create a dimension value and a measure value so we can use them. So with this parameter we created, we loaded it as a list. We call it select dimension, right? And then we gave it a value 1 to 6. That's just a value that it's easier to work with, right? And then our first value is company, state, classification, subclassification, issue, and sub-issue. Let's see what this parameter looks like. Show parameter control. Here, okay, we don't need you anymore. Bye. So we can see that this gives us the ability to choose what we want to visualize the data by. Currently, it doesn't work because we need to create a calculated measure to work with it. But let's just show them first. The select measure has two different selections: number of complaints and average days to resolve the complaint. So let's show this as well. Now we need to create a calculated measure and a calculated dimension to work with these two parameters. The calculated measure, I'll show you guys how I created it. I created it as a select dimension. Let me just copy this so that I can show you guys how it's. So you go to here, you said create calculated field, you call it select dimension, and then use a case statement, right? A case statement is similar to an if statement, but it gives us a better flexibility to put in more values that we want to see. Case when select dimension is being selected. When 1 is being selected, then give me company. If 2 is selected, give me the state. The rest works the same. Okay, so let's go. Okay, you can see select dimension is being selected. We then pull this into our dimension field. You can see immediately it changes our dimension field. Choose it to company, it shows this, and then we can just filter it by our value. Okay, every company have 1 complaint. That's good to know. So then we need to do the same for select measure. For select measure, you need to create a calculated measure as well. Just show you guys how I calculated it. Case when parameter select measure is selected. When 1, then give me the count of the complaint ID. When 2, then give me the average days taken to resolve the complaints. So okay, we put our select measure into our measure field, and then now we have a chart that business users can just use it to choose what they want to see the data in. Number of complaints or average days of resolving the complaints. This becomes really useful when you want to create a dashboard that caters for everything. Often enough that when we doing charts, business users come up with different visualizations that they want to see. In the beginning, they might not know what they want to see yet, but as they go by, they want to have the power to control what they want to see. We can load a lot of parameters onto one chart and make it a master chart that allows business users to do many things. Now, let me just show you guys how a complete dashboard looks like. So here, this is the dashboard that I've created for this data set. We have year-on-year volume of complaints versus last year increased by 8.5%. And then the average days it takes to resolve is 2 days. And then here, these top 5 states, they use parameters controls. What's pretty cool is if you see that it says top 5 states here, that is being used as a title. When you change this number into top 10, it automatically updates that value as well, which is quite handy when you want to visualize, when you want to show the data show the users what you are showing them. Our second dashboard is we want to see total complaints per channel. And we can see that all these 4 circles are being highlighted, right? Let's say currently we see that we receive all the complaints by web. Now, if you guys remember from RG271, we need to timely respond to we need to acknowledge our complaint within 24 hours. We can see here the percentage represents the amount of complaint that was acknowledged within 24 hours. Web has a 98%, 98.77% of the time that we responded. However, this needs to be 100%, right? Using this dashboard, you can track how you go every month. You can choose a month, and you can see how well you do throughout the months. We can also see, okay, cool, we want to move most of our complaint management to email. However, currently email, we're only getting 0.01% from email, right? We want to run a campaign to change that, but we want to track how well we're doing. we can use parameters to track that. Let's say we target that our channel percentage of email needs to be 25%. Ooh, let's just make it 0.25. 25%. We see currently only web is true. All the rest is not true. Therefore, after you run the campaign, you can come back to the dashboard and see if your campaign actually worked for the month. This is another way of doing it. We want to keep, for example, we want to keep our IDR, our disputes, consumer disputes low. Currently, we have a chart here that shows that our dispute threshold is being set at 30%, and for lender damage or destroyed property, customer disputes what the outcome that we give, the IDR outcome that we provide 66% of the time. That is way too high. We want to flag it, right? However, as we progress throughout the year, we might be doing well, and these might be dropping down to 20-25%. Then we need to rechange what our threshold needs to be. So let's say we want to change it to 20%. And then our target is 10%, for example. Then we can start highlighting these ones, and then we work on them. The company, the financial firm needs to work on the outcome and the outcome that provide to the customer, so that we keep our dispute resolution, our dispute percentage lower. The fourth dashboard is the dashboard I showed you guys earlier, where you can just choose what your dimension is and what your measure is. And then you can print this into PDF, or you can use it to do your own analysis. For example, you want to see in 2016, what was the most complained classification, right? See, credit reporting is the highest. Using Tableau to chop and change your data is what makes Tableau really powerful to its users. Okay, now I've shown you guys the complaint dashboard, the channel dashboard, the complaint analysis. So let's talk about some of the takeaway points for today. We have learned what parameters are and what they can do. And there's so many other different ways that we can use parameters for. I just couldn't fit everything inside this session. We have learned how easy it is to create visualizations in Tableau. We learned about what RG271 is about and how we can make a dataset comply, right? Just to refresh about some of the key points that we spoke about, we want to see that our average days of complaint is kept to a minimum. We want to acknowledge our customer complaint within 24 hours, and our dashboard help us track that to see if we comply. We saw how a typical complaint dashboard would look like for a financial institution that manages complaints. So I really hope everyone understands how powerful parameters are, and everyone should be using parameters in their Tableau model. If you ever have similar needs in your reporting, please do contact us, and we can do a mock-up for you guys if you ever need. So these are the takeaway points for today. Let's move over to the Q&A session. Okay, let me look at the questions here. Christian H, good info, thanks. I'm curious to see if you can use parameters on the title or two-thirds of the chart. Yes, of course you can. let me just show you guys how it's done. So let's go to one of the chart that we have created. Right. We can go to the tooltip. We can basically insert. So hold on. Let me go to the one that we created. Okay. You can say parameter control to be, then let's put in our top end, for example. And then when you hover it, you can see the parameter control to be 10. Right? We can use it in our tooltip. We can use it in our title. Let's go to title, and then let's say param equals to. Let's put in any parameter. Can put it in our title as well. It comes really handy when you want to do dashboarding and everything. Okay, I'm guessing there is no other questions. Want to thank everyone for joining our webinar today, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.